Hello everyone, so glad to be back with you guys once again. In the last particular video, we talked about bringing the receipts. We're going to do that once again. In this video, we kindly ask you to consider smashing that like button, but we understand we need to earn that like. Let's go ahead and earn that here in a brief bit, and let's jump into the material and why it matters. So for one, just like you saw in the thumbnail, before Bitcoin and Ripple, was there really quant? Well, it's all about the whole concept, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, of the evolution of technology dating back to 1961. Now, of course, this is how we connect some things. In the documentation you're going to see here in a bit, it's understanding that quant is so much bigger than what people realize. When we say everything, literally everything, how about this before we start connecting some other key things?
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
What about specifically oil? No, I'm not talking about standard oil. I'm going to share a different particular oil. As this comes up on your screen, it's really eye-opening to say the least, and here it basically is. As you see in the citation from JJW Foods Limited, talks about refined rapeseed canola oil, right? Some of you guys use this, some of you guys don't. Some of you guys prefer, obviously, your extra virgin olive oil and whatever the case be. But what's interesting to me is the findings. So from jjwfl.com, it's this. And like it says, the origin is in Europe, Russia, or United Kingdom. And like it also mentions, standards. How many times have you heard Channy and I talk about standards? So it says conform to Turkish standard TS 892, British standard BS 684, European norm, and CEN, because we always talk about CENELEC, UC, ISO TC 307. On one of Channing's recent videos, he shared that segment about CENELEC. But again, TC 307. Interesting to see this because when we talk about international standardization for it all and international food standards of the United Nations, well, this is why Quant gets mentioned. And we know that ISO TC 307 is the Quant network standard. All right, let's fast forward to maybe the main reason why you're here. All right, just a disclaimer. I'll come back into the frame for just a brief moment. Just because you hear these brothers and myself talk about the World Economic Forum, the World Economic Forum, doesn't mean we're fans of the World Economic Forum. It's just citing research. I, of course, just sharing this with you. So as the saying goes, don't shoot the messenger here, but understand the key research. Because when you see the research, this document is cited from the World Economic Forum. As we jump into it, here it is. And basically, it's on page 8 and 9 from the World Economic Forum, appendix reference of architectural comparison. And what you see here is a group of blockchain distributed ledger technologies. Now, before I get into reading this key thing, we'll come back for a moment. Christine Lagarde of the European Central Bank has pointed out the wanton need to move forward with the technologies, but stated specifically in her keynote speech back in March that in order to move forward, we would need legislation passed, but they're already there. They just want that to happen. Why does she point out so many of these key technologies, and why am I sharing this with you? Well, the reason why we are sharing this with you, I should say, is because, again, the citation. And in the citation, you'll see this. Back to the whole thing of the World Economic Forum, because apparently, dating back to 1961, remember how we just point out CEN? Well, CEN, as in CEN, develops European standards for various sectors, whereas CENELEC develops standards in the area of electrical engineering. One of my recent videos I shared also with Jesse, we talked about IEEE and how Quant is at the forefront of that. So in 2017, the CEN and CENELEC together established a focus group, which is FG-BDLT. That's interesting. And their purpose was to identify European needs and requirements for the implementation of DLT in Europe. The aim of this group is to map these needs against the publications of ISO TC 307. Other objectives of FGB DLT are the identification of European needs, and read that for a second, for blockchain and DLT standardization, and to encourage further European participation in ISO TC 307. It doesn't say if, it says to share that identification of those needs to participate. This is in alignment, everybody, with Christine Lagarde's statements from her keynote speech. Because, again, back to the whole thing of in line, well, it literally says it. In line with this, the European Commission launched the European Blockchain Partnership back in 2018. And think about when Quant Network with standards and all this came out. So, constant references to ISO TC 307, constant references to standards back in Australia, and constant references all over the place, not just for Europe, obviously Australia, when it comes to ISO TC 307. But don't ever forget it. It's the whole thing of that Europe needs to have things implemented, and they never had it because technology didn't exist back in 1961. Say what you want. Quant Network, through the Overledger operating system, the OVN, if you will, is the evolution of what they needed. This is why they're pushing forward. And this part, a joint declaration to cooperate in the establishment of a European blockchain service infrastructure. The aim of this infrastructure to support the delivery of cross-border public services through an interoperability and open interfaces and with the highest standards of security. Think about this, everybody. The EC engages and follows both the ISO TC 307 and the ITU-T focus group on application of DLT. There it is. And apparently it's always been there. Has this been shared out there? I don't think so. And if somebody did share it, hey, kudos to you. Maybe come network with us. But constant references to ISO TC 307. And this other thing is what also bugs me. Because in the previous outline, we talked about 1988 and The Economist. What example do we have yet again? European Telecommunication Standards Institute, ETSI. How many times have you heard Channing and I talk about ETSI? Because in the background, the ETSI is a not-for-profit standardization organization in the telecommunications industry in Europe. Founded in 1988, geez, boil it, mash it, stick it in steel, what a coincidence. The ETSI is tasked with the standardization of information and communication technologies, ICT, in, of course, Europe. Say what you want. That's a big deal moving forward. Before we play a keynote video that ties in everything and why you're here, we're going to hear from these two gentlemen. Let's go ahead and just pull them up.
Oh my goodness. It just like rabbit hole after rabbit hole. I mean, I always think that I went as deep as I can go in a rabbit hole and then another rabbit hole pops up. Like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Reading this document makes me feel like, how Gilbert Verdian says, and that may be the case, but he's always saying like he taught about, we need to set the standards globally and so on and so forth. But I'm kind of really questioning right now if he's the one that came up with that idea, because I see the connection going way back. I think that the push for standards, I mean, yes, he knows we need standards, but that push and his relationship with these organizations that we're talking about and these standard setting bodies and the IMF and Interdevelopment Bank and the BIS, I mean, I think it goes even deeper. But that's what I mean. Like to be the operating system, the standard operating system for this fourth industrial revolution that we're going into is just insane. I explained that in one of my videos. Like it's like you can't even explain that. You can't even. That's why I said like every time I talk about quant, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to explain to you guys about quant without taking 40,000 hours or 800,000 hours because it's so huge. Like the potential is just insane. Not financial advice, but it's just this is crazy. Like this is crazy. It's what do you think, buddy? Like I'm for lack of words. What do you think? What are your thoughts here?
is like just piggybacking right off of that. One of those last statements is the operating system for the fourth industrial revolution. Like you have to think about what an industrial revolution is. It is the thing that streamlines a process, makes it cheaper, and in the process, who's ever over that industrial revolution gets extremely wealthy because they are truly benefiting off of the technology, whether that was going from, farming to now having AI farm robots doing the thing, whether that was going from the assembly lines to where we stand now, where you have robots in the assembly line. Literally, this industrial revolution that's happening right now with blockchain and distributed technology, coupled with the fifth one coming behind us with AI, it's going to be insane. And to know that Quant Network, working alongside of whether he was the first one to say we need standards or just building off of someone else's idea of standards, going back to 1988 and so forth and so on, to know that he had the foresight to actually start the process of getting it done. I want to say it was when he worked on the Australian healthcare blockchain is when the ISO first initially approached him like, hey, you got something here. I think we might want to go ahead and make this a standard. And that very well could have been the missing piece from that from that 1988 up until that point of them wanting to do this, but not actually having that piece of technology that will actually make it happen. And when he made that interoperable blockchain platform for the healthcare system of Australia, that let them see our vision can be a reality. So we need to tap into this and actually horn into this. And he was right in alignment because of his extensive background with cyber security, the internet, and anything else that's alongside of the whole digital revolution that's been taking place over this last 30, 40 years of the internet being in existence for mass adoption. Because it's been in existence long before that, but it was only for the big boys. And you needed a computer the size of this room to play in it. And when we started to get to the point where computers got smaller and smaller and smaller, and now we had desktops, and then now we had laptops, and now we're at cell phones. Well, the adoption of what's getting ready to come with this fourth industrial revolution is going to make the adoption of the internet and the cell phone combined look like child's play, because everybody is already tapped into, for the most part, the internet in some way or another, whether that's dial-up, whether that's Wi-Fi or whatever, or cell phone use or cell phone data use. And when they bring in this technology for the world to use, while Kristen Lagarde said things like we need the standards, we need regulation being built out so that we can start implementing the digital euro. But it's not just the digital euro, the digital pound, the digital dollar, if we ever get one, however it pans out, whether it's a CBDC or not, the digital Canadian dollar, so forth and so on around the world. The regulation that is now being laid is going to let their 1988 vision become a reality. And that's where we sit right now.
Yeah. But I think they've known what the regulations were going to be for a very long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw a guy from the FSB saying on stage, like, we know what it's going to be. They act like, oh, regulations is, are we going to be able to figure out the regulations so it can be adopted? And it's all BS. The BIS is BS. If you
what I say that the governments do is they play battleship with our lives, like a game of battleship. Yeah, but it's like it's scripted. It's like a movie. It's literally, it's already been decided. That's why I say the things I say in the video. When we start hearing things, it's already been decided, period. When they talk about things like regulations, when they talk about things like standards, that's why now everybody from the DTCC and everybody's now have the word standards on their mouth, because the standards already been done.
Yeah, it's crazy. I say that in my videos a lot of times. Say, listen, guys, like, you have to understand that when they talk about, like, in the documents and in the seminars, when they're saying like, oh, we're looking at this, we could like kind of create like a unified ledger. We're looking into it. Like, I tell people, I say, listen, guys, they're always talking as if this is theoretical. This is not sure. Like, you're just testing. But they're all like, this is complete BS. Like, you have to understand, like, they're already like everybody that's publishing documents or talking in the seminars. Okay, they're sitting with the BIS for years prior, and they have guidelines. Say, listen, when you're going to talk about this technology, when you're going to talk about Enbridge, when you're going to talk about any of these CBDC projects, you have to say, like, these are theoretical. We're testing. Like, people have to understand. Like, don't believe the language they're telling you, because all the policies are set at the top. A lot of people don't understand that the editorial policies are set at the very top, and then every organization underneath follows those editorial policies. And so you hear that language constantly as it's theoretical, but it's not. Like, they're doing it.
Let's talk about who sits at the top. He just mentioned the BIS and how they're BS. Let's get into some of this and why it matters to you. So you're going to see something that probably wasn't shared with most of you guys, unless you're like the most hardcore BIS follower of all time. And I want to pull this up on your screen. It does come from YouTube. I've gone ahead and fast forward to this key area for you guys. So let's go ahead and pull this up. And basically speaking, it is this. It's referred to as a vision of the future financial system. Well, would the quantum financial operating system, aka the quant network overledger, be part of that vision? Draw your own conclusion in that regard, because when you see some of this, it's going to be really eye-opening. Yes, it was from a while ago, but it pounds home everything about, for one, Peterson Institute of International Economics, the whole concept of the Finternet, as referred to from Augustine Carson, which by definition is the financial system for the future. Think about that. And all these key participants that showed up to this. Listen to this from this particular gentleman about how he references the ability to empower people with their money, because back in 2016, India used mostly cash. Listen to this closely. It's very, very eye-opening. We're going to go ahead and play that, and we're going to jump right back. Here we go.
We have a payment system which does 13 billion transactions a month, and Roberto has done a fantastic job in Brazil with Pix, which has also transformed Brazilian payments. And we have always thought about technology as requiring it to be universal. That is, in other words, technology should be for people, rich people who have smartphones, people who have feature phones, people who don't have phones. So everything we do should be done with universality in mind. So that's been the broad thinking that we've had historically. And we have seen, whether it's in India or Brazil or anywhere else, that if there's strong regulatory push, if there is political will, if there's the right technology, we can make things happen. So it's with that background of having been participating in making things happen that we have done this paper. So this paper is not just a theoretical paper, it's actually a plan of action, a call for action, and we look forward to working with all of you on that. Now, what is it about the financial internet? What are we trying to do? First, we are trying to think of a financial system which puts the user at the center of it. In other words, whether it's an individual or a business, whether it's retail or wholesale, the financial system should be designed with the user in mind. And often that doesn't happen. Second, we want to create a unified approach to the financial system. In other words, this should work in all countries. This should work in all sectors. This should work for all asset classes. It could be bonds, it could be cash, it could be shares, it could be mutual funds, ETFs, gold. I know I can say this in front of central bank, it could be Bitcoin. Anyway, so the point is that it is essentially neutral or agnostic to the asset classes.
That's why you heard that Doge guy go the dun dun dun. Did you not just hear him say agnostic? How do you say quant without saying quant? You know, Channing and I say that quite a bit. Now, just a little bit more before we let these guys inject. If that didn't catch your attention, I don't think anything will. I don't think anything out there will. All right? This gets juicy. As we pull up a little bit more about this, let's share this part and pull it up on the screen. All right, and with that said, it's just like this, everybody. The principle behind the Finternet is similar. To really unlock the value of financial innovation, we need to bring all of the pieces together and seek to dismantle barriers and silos that exist in the current financial system. And it is important to do so now, when the technology is mature enough to use. But before we get locked into rigid institutional frameworks or walled gardens, we have a once in a lifetime opportunity to revisit the architecture of the financial system. Instead of asking what financial technologies we will use in the future, we should ask what the entire future financial system will look like. And we should figure out how we can make a quantum, yes, quant, like it says right there, quantum leap to get there. How many times have you heard Channing say, how do you say quant without saying quant? All right, a little bit more about this, because I do think that this is a very, very big deal. Let's share this tab. And in doing so, notice how we mentioned in previous few videos, FuSSE, if you're not aware of it, is the first project developed under the agreement signed between the IDB and, of course, the Bank for International Settlements. It dates back to 2023, but whatever the case be, it's to promote regional financial inclusion. And like it mentions here, the initiative by the IDB and the BIS, with the participation of the Bank of Canada, has in fact generated broad regional interest. The initiative has a three-pronged approach to financial inclusion in the region, and that is technological innovation, assistance for the design and implementation of public policy, and institutional capacity building. The International Association, or I should say, International American Development Bank, the IDB, and the Bank for International Settlements presented the latest advancements of the fully scalable engine, or FuSSE. Think about that for a moment. This is why we mentioned some of these key things. Because it's an initiative that offers open source technology among central banks to facilitate the implementation of payment systems and other settlement infrastructures. Think about that for a moment. It also provides technical assistance for regulatory design and institutional capacity improvement. So, to me, when you see the statements that FuSSE is, in fact, the first project developed under the Memorandum of Understanding signed by both entities in 2023, well, to date, this initiative was also bringing the involvement of the Bank of Canada and has generated broad interest among countries in the region. Right, because what we shared earlier on the other video was the whole thing of what the European Central Bank's initiative is as well. They will be the first, and all of these will come into suit afterwards, because it pounds home even the whole thing with blockchain. Because to advance financial inclusion in Latin American and the Caribbean countries, they need to remove barriers to entry for consumers and make personalized products and services more convenient and accessible. FuSSE is committed to facilitating the access through simplifying the implementation of efficient payment systems and other settlement infrastructures necessary for the future of financial transactions. The initiative has a three-pronged approach, like I mentioned, and it's all there. This, in my opinion, screams quant, like I pointed out. And this is, of course, where we're going to have these two gentlemen come back in to give their thoughts of all the key findings and why it matters to you all.
It definitely screams quant. I mean, even like the verb is talking about, not having the systems build out silos amongst themselves and being able to truly be operable with each other. And like Gilbert, like Maximus just said in regards to the European Central Bank. Think about it. Nika was one of the first ones from the big boys to go, here is full-on stablecoin regulation. Now we see America's now just getting on the bandwagon. The UK is now just trying to get on the bandwagon. And just like with stablecoin legislation, market structure and framework. This is what Christine Lagarde was talking in regards to. We need this market structure, we need this framework so that we can implement our CBDC and to make it a reality. We can't go wrong with this project, in her exact words. And they may be, like you were just saying, one of those first ones, like they were one of those first movers when it came to stablecoin legislation. That there's almost a year. Next, I think I want to say June 30th or July 31st, whichever one of those was, it'll be a year that they've had comprehensive stablecoin regulation in the EU. So it literally is like falling in alignment. And then to know, looking at what LackChain is also doing, being that framework of distributed ledger, then seeing what the European Union is doing based off of that framework that's been being laid out. Because think about LackChain goes even deeper than where the European Union's regulations go in. Because like I said, it's been in existence now almost 3 years. So it's all building literally on top of each other. and it's all moving harmoniously because they all are reading from the same exact book.
Mm. Yeah, it's a thick book too. It's a very, very thick book, and it's an old book. It's a very old
Yes.
book. They've been planning for years. Yeah, for me, it speaks Quant, obviously, but it speaks XRP too. It speaks, it screams Quant and XRP. Because for me, I see the shared ledger and a unified ledger as technically the same thing. Um, uh, because we're seeing the unified ledger being interconnected with the interledger protocol, and it's Ripple team that built the interledger protocol, and XRP and XLM are built on top of the interledger protocol. And XRP, for example, has a built-in exchange, a 100% decentralized exchange within the XRP ledger. It's very, very advanced, and the interledger protocol is for interconnecting exchange networks, while Quant is for connecting networks, period. Right? But the interledger protocol is a very specialized protocol that a lot of people don't realize. It is for exchange networks. But to me, like I said, like that shared ledger, that unified ledger, we're seeing the interledger protocol involved, and then we're seeing the BIS talking about. I showed a video on one of my showed that on one of my videos. We're seeing the guy at the BIS saying that the unified ledger is replacing Swift. Well, we know it's Ripple replacing Swift, right? And Ripple's sitting everywhere Quant is sitting. Ripple is technically sitting, right? They're on the Federal Reserve Task Force. They're on the steering committee of the ISO. They're also actually the only company. I pulled that out today. Ripple's the only company that is on the cross-border, the BIS cross-border task force. Okay, I think it's a few years ago it started. So to me, it screams, it screams Quant, and XRP. And so the way I see it is Quant is that overlay that allows all the legacy systems, and this is how you get that quantum leap, in my opinion. Okay, is because the utility and the use cases, everything that's happening in this world, whether you're talking supply chain management, healthcare, like every industry in the world right now is in the legacy systems. So Quant is that, like the Internet of Value sits underneath, right? I should add that the Hyperledger Foundation released a document. Well, didn't release it; it slipped out many years ago. Where we're seeing the Internet of Value, how they're going to build it, and you see XRP right in the middle. It's called the Global RTGS System, right? And you see all the central banks; they have their real-time gross settlement, RTGS. But in the middle was the XRP ledger, and it said that the XRP ledger was the global RTGS system. So it's the RTGS system for all of the RTGS. And then on the right-hand side, it said that via the interledger protocol, the XRP ledger will become that global liquidity marketplace. Okay, so because XRP is the Internet of Value, and what's happening, a lot of people don't realize, is that the CBDCs across the world are being built on side chains of the XRP ledger. These are clone copies of the XRP ledger, and this is where the CBDCs are being built. So to me, that's why the shared ledger, the XRP ledger, by definition, is a shared ledger. Okay, now where Quant comes in play. Okay, after like 14,000 hours of research, I've probably done almost in both projects. This is how I understand it: is Quant allows these legacy systems where all of the use cases exist, like not use cases, use cases and industries, all of them, supply chain management, money, like everything, healthcare, every industry basically. Okay, Internet of Things even. Quant is what allows these legacy systems, which everything is happening on right now, to connect into this shared ledger. Because in order for this Internet of Value to thrive, you need use cases. You have to bridge that old world. You have to bring the third industrial age into the fourth industrial age. You have to bring it. So these legacy systems, like I said, everything's happening on these legacy systems, and they cannot talk blockchain. So you need to be able to tap them into these shared ledger, but not only this shared ledger where the value is residing. Because if you have the Internet of Value and you have money, but you have no use cases, you don't have nothing. Like, it's all about bringing the use cases to the central bank money, but at the same time, you need to be able to connect to other blockchains at the same time, so that you can build these multi-chain applications, and so that you can really build all these. Because when you see Gilbert Verdian at the presentation, when he launched the Quant Overledger, he was explaining the product, so on, and he says, what can we build with it? We don't know, because like that's why we're offering it to you. Like, there's so many things you can build. It's unlimited because you can use all the blockchains. Like, it's unlimited use case, right? But again, like, how do you do that? You have to plug the legacy systems into all of those, into the shared ledger, which is a DLT, which to me is the XRP ledger, and you need also to be able to use all the other blockchains as well, because that's where you're bringing all the use cases from the legacy systems, and you're pounding that onto the DLTs to build multi-chain applications. Wow, sorry, I went on a
Exactly.
little rant there, brother. So sorry.
No, you're good. Just piggybacking off what you were saying. So essentially, think of XRP being the actual gas station, and Quant Network being the gas at that gas station, and the cars that pull up are the legacy system. Well, when Quant
Nice.
Networks, hose goes into the legacy system, it then connects them into the actual network so they can get filled up with the liquidity that XRP is providing. But it's all one harmonious global network of networks, as Quant says all the time. So it's quite the opportunity that we find ourselves in. I can't keep saying it, because as we do more and more deep dives, and just with more and more information that you have and I have, Maximus has, and what more and more information that comes out, we see that this is a plan. And this is something that they are methodically doing and executing globally. And to sit back and see it happening, unfold in real time, and to have the knowledge that we have to actually be able to see the unfolding it's incredible.
Yeah, we never would have known this if we didn't have the internet, man. Like, this is
At
not
all.
for us. This is not for us.
It's not for us. You're right. At
No.
all. You're 1,000% correct.
I just want to say, though, that the Quant is likely bigger than the Internet of Value, because it is the Internet of Trust. I mean, nothing's happening without Quant, because you got to connect those legacy systems. So even if I'm preaching XRP, don't get me wrong, like, Quant is probably bigger, because the Internet of Trust, right? It touches every application, every use case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just the liquidity of it, but it literally is the thing that allows it to interoperate literally with the rest of the network.
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Max? What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are we need to wrap it up, and
Okay.
We're glad to give you guys, obviously, these two great guys' thoughts of it all. I could talk you guys' ears off as well, but I'm not going to do that at the moment. We want you guys to stay tuned to the next episode, which is going to come up hopefully tomorrow. And we're going to talk a lot more about these key technologies, why they matter, and, of course, get into the deep dive research. So as the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. And if you listen to the entire outline, simply drop this key word into the comments, and that is 1961. And we'll know that you listened to the entire outline. On behalf of myself, Jesse, and Channing, we'll see you on the next one.